quickly, efficiently, friendly, whatever you want. You can specify that when you hire your arbitrator, what type of arbitration you want. A lot of it's very informal. We have things like mediation, where can't we all get along? We should be friends rather than enemies. Or we can build bridges, solve problems. All of these great things that you can select. As a person who is going into a contract, you can select this when you sign the contract or ex post, depending on your individual needs. In addition to arbitration, there's all other types of mechanisms, bonding mechanisms. For example, if you don't trust the other person's going to follow through with their bargain, they won't follow the arbitrator, you could say, well, we're both going to deposit $1 million into an escrow account. And in the event of a dispute, the escrow account will give us back our money. A bonding company could say, well, I'll take that risk. If you don't have $1 million, I'll assume the risk. I'm going to do some investigation, see if I think you're trustworthy. In addition to that, there's things like reputation mechanisms. When you go to a restaurant, you don't look to get a good meal because the police will arrest them afterwards. You look to get a good meal because they've got a good reputation, right? There's very few legal incentives involved when we're talking about the high-end restaurants. There's nobody who's saying, you promised me a 4-star meal, and you promised to be nice to me, and you didn't do that. That's just not the way it works. Things go through word of mouth, reputation as an alternative to external enforcement. Some other examples of voluntarily chosen legal systems that I'll mention. NASD, National Association of Securities Dealers. If you ever have a contract with a stockbroker, there's an arbitration clause in that where you agree in the event of a dispute, you're going to follow this procedure. Why should you go to an NASD arbitrator rather than a government court? Well, they know about the industry. This is controversial, but not every judge is a genius. Not every judge, actually I shouldn't say this because certain people get in trouble if you say bad things about judges.
Don't talk about the judges.
All judges know about all industries. They're an expert in every single possible industry. So you should just rely on the government judges, and it's much better. So certain people who go to NASD say, well, we're going to follow this procedure instead. It's very, very formal. You choose, you submit a claim, you choose arbitrators, there's a pre-hearing, discovery hearings. So similar to a trial, there's deliberation, and then the awards are assessed. Other things, this is kind of interesting, much more informal, is eBay. eBay is an alternative to a legal system. I had this issue recently. I was buying these Mary-Kate and Ashley Olsen buttons. And the guy never sold them to me. So I was very upset, and I called him up, and no response. So then I was like, all right, I'm going to call up George Bush, who was the president at the time. He didn't take my call, and so then I was just perplexed. Someone told me that I was taking the wrong approach, that I shouldn't be taking this governmental approach. What is the actual solution in eBay?
eBay Resolution Center.
Okay, yeah, and what did you say? Okay, yeah, they've got this whole complicated thing, even without talking with the official eBay resolution system. They've got this whole ratings thing, reputation thing. You, as a customer, know the probabilities, or the likely probabilities, of whether something is going to come to you as delivered. Some people have perfect scores, and they say, whatever you want, I will make you happy. Other people say, well, I'm giving you a good deal. You know, the risk is yours. And the great thing about eBay is all of this is done completely using informational systems, reputation mechanisms, without using any type of legal coercion. In addition to the reputation mechanism, my understanding is they have certain types of escrow arrangements. If you're worried about things, you can hire an escrow agent for extra money. I've never used that, so I don't know. But luckily, I did get the buttons out well. All right, now, how far can we extend this? I've been talking about examples on a local level. I've been talking about things on a global level with international trade. Is it possible, I just want us to think about that for a minute. Is it possible, or may it be possible, to just push this logic further? Wherever we see private solutions, let's rely on that and not assume government needs to be involved everywhere. Ultimately, you might say, no, this is good. We should just stop here. But even if that's your position, I want to point out that you're accepting that private law enforcement is far more common than the average person thinks. And the question I want to ask is, what might it look like if we were to just completely extend this? Some people say, well, yeah, maybe it works here, maybe it works at a local level, but it certainly couldn't work on a global scale. It couldn't work in a modern economy where there's so many people making so many transactions. How do you know that people are actually going to follow through with their agreements? How do you know what group they're part of? How do you know what rules they're going to follow? These would be too difficult if we were to extend this all the way. Doug North and other economists argue that there would be too high transaction costs, and it's better off when we have government. And I just want to say, right now we don't have a pure example of a system which is purely private, but I do want to mention one thing which is very amazing to me. It's an amazing feat of the market which solves tons and tons of these problems, dealing with disparate individuals all over the globe, making thousands of contracts, some huge ones, some small ones, and it basically enables two people anywhere in the globe to sign an arrangement, an agreement to make sure that they're going to follow through with their word. And the example is as follows. I was in Europe last summer, and I went to this restaurant, and I realized that I was never going to go back there ever again. They're from a different country. They have a different government from me. And I said, I'm not going to pay. Forget them. It's too high transaction costs. They're never going to track me down. I went into tons of stores. I did this everywhere. I said, I'm just going to give you this piece of plastic, and then I'm just going to leave. So they gave me all these goods, all this meal, and I had a great time, and I thought I got away scot-free. It was really good. And then what happened? At the end of the month, I didn't realize this part, but somehow they knew who I was based on this thing. I gave it to them, and somehow they took money out of my account. Okay? It's so interesting. It sounds silly, but it is quite an amazing system that you can go anywhere and not have a pre-existing arrangement with somebody, and nevertheless, the credit card system can arrange this transaction between two strangers all over the world and charge you only a commission of 2% or 3%, depending on your credit card. Okay? So if you have a dispute between you and the merchant, you don't actually have to talk with the merchant. You just simply call up your credit card company. You have a relationship with your customer bank. They have a relationship with their bank. And there's this whole complicated legal system